Todd McShay of ESPN released his post-Super Bowl first-round mock draft. How many Vols does Todd McShay have going in the first round? The answer might surprise you, and it's not in a good way. That and a whole lot more here on your Thursday, Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey everybody, how we doing? Welcome into it. This is Locked On Vols, and I'm your host, Eric Kane. Really glad that you guys have joined me here today to talk a little Tennessee football, a little Tennessee basketball, a little Tennessee baseball. We're going to get into all of that here today and take a look at the NFL draft that's coming up here. It'll be here before you know it with the NFL Combine taking place here in just a few weeks. You can always find me on Twitter at _Kaner and at Locked On Vols. Locked On Vols, your team every single day. It's a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. If you're watching, as always, thank you. Subscribe, like this video, fill out those comments. It really helps the algorithms getting this video out there. And of course, wherever you find your podcast, thank you for listening, making your first listen. Leave me a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and that would be awesome. All right, coming up today, we're going to get into Tennessee basketball, recapping Tennessee and Alabama in segment 2. Ryan Shumpert of Rocky Top Insider going to come on and talk a little baseball with me here in segment number 3 as Tennessee opens up the baseball season tomorrow in Arizona. But first, I kind of want to discuss the latest mock draft from Todd McShay. It's NFL mock draft first round predictions from Todd McShay post Super Bowl. And we've been doing this exercise, and we'll continue to do this exercise on up until the NFL draft. That's just kind of how it is. It's what moves the needle. It's football. It's what you guys care about. And a lot of you guys are interested in where Tennessee Volunteers are going to be drafted and begin their NFL career. Speaking of which, a couple years ago, Trey Smith slid all the way to the 6th round. It was unfortunate, but he was picked by a good team, and lo and behold, 2 years later, he has won a Super Bowl. That is some really good stuff. Alontae Taylor had an incredible rookie season for the New Orleans Saints. That was really, really cool to see, and there's a lot of other, like Josh Palmer's doing well for the Chargers. Here, recent Volunteers to be drafted. Who's going to be next? Well, of course, there's 4 Volunteers who are rumored to be first-round draft picks. When I say rumored, either they've been listed in a mock draft, they've been talked about as being in a mock draft, or they've been listed on a projection or whatever. And so all 4 of these guys have had first-round links to their name at some point in time over the last month or so since the end of the regular season. That would be quarterback Hendon Hooker. That would be wide receiver Jalin Hyatt. That would be offensive lineman Darnell Wright. And that would be defensive lineman Byron Young. Now, again, I always say this. Do I think all 4 of those guys will be first-round draft picks? No, I do not. Would it surprise me if 2 of the 4 were first-round draft picks? No, it would not. Would it surprise me if none of these guys were first-round draft picks? No, it would not. Again, like recruiting, the NFL draft process is fluid. So Tennessee could have 1, maybe more, or none in the first round, but these 4 guys will lead Tennessee's draft class. There's no doubt about it. Plus, wide receiver Cedric Tillman is going to be in that mix as well. Also, I will say I've seen multiple first-round links for Hendon Hooker, who I don't think will be drafted in the first round, for Jalin Hyatt, who I think could, who Darnell Wright, who I think will, and only 1 for Byron Young, though. And, of course, that was Mel Kiper's top 31 picks a couple of weeks ago. I haven't seen anything else about Byron Young in the first round, but again, he has been linked to that. So Todd McShay went out here post-Super Bowl mock draft. This came out early on a Wednesday morning, and in his first 31 picks, remember the Miami Dolphins do not have a first-round pick because of they had to forfeit that with all the stuff with their wild owner. So there's only 31 picks in this year's NFL first round, and there are no Tennessee Volunteers. No Tennessee Volunteers in this first round from Todd McShay. There were 4 quarterbacks drafted in this mock draft. No Hendon Hooker. There were 4 wide receivers listed in the top 31 picks. No Cedric Tillman, no Jalin Hyatt. There were 5 offensive tackles listed in this first round. No Darnell Wright. Again, it's hard for me to believe that 5 offensive tackles are going to be selected before Darnell Wright. I truly believe that. I could see 4 wide receivers. I can definitely see 4 quarterbacks, which I think will happen. I think the quarterback's pretty much set in stone that it's these 4 guys who I'll get to in a moment, and Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Will Levis, and Anthony Richardson, and then it will be that next quarterback, and that'll be Hendon Hooker. I think those 4 are as good as locked to be first-rounders, likely to be top 10, and they are top 10 in this exercise. Do I agree with all of them? Absolutely not, but that's just kind of what's going to happen. I could maybe see 4 wide receivers before Jalin Hyatt, but I cannot see 4 to 5 offensive tackles being selected before Darnell Wright. I just can't see that. That, in my opinion, will not happen. So, and this is Todd McShay. As I mentioned, there were 4 quarterbacks selected in this exercise. None of them were Hendon Hooker. Number 1 overall was Bryce Young. I think Bryce Young is probably going to be selected number 1 overall. I think he's easily the best quarterback in this draft. And I know it's not a slight at Hendon. I'm just saying I can see Bryce Young, if he were selected number 1 overall, that would be deserving, because I think Alabama, feel free to disagree with me, guys, I think Alabama would have lost 3 games this year without Bryce Young. I do. He is that good. I mean, he's the best quarterback I've seen in my life in person, okay? Well, I take that back. I've gone to some NFL games. But still, the best college quarterback I've seen with my eyes in person, probably Bryce Young. Just what he can do, keeping his eyes downfield and all that type of stuff. I mean, y'all saw that. I think Alabama would have lost a couple of games if he did not tough it out and play. So Bryce Young's going number 1 overall with another mock trade. I mean, this is like the 4th mock trade I've seen that has Indianapolis trading with Chicago to get that number 1 overall pick and to go up and get Bryce Young. And with Jim Irsay's comments in his press conference a couple of days ago, I mean, it's not hard to see that that's who he likes. So I could see that happening. Young goes number 1 overall. C.J. Stroud of Ohio State goes number 2 overall to the Houston Texans. Will Anderson Jr. goes 3 overall to the Cardinals. Jalen Carter, defensive lineman of Georgia, goes 4 in that trade to the Bears. Number 5 is Tyree Wilson, defensive end of the Seahawks. Number 6 is Miles Murphy, defensive end of Clemson, who did not play in the Orange Bowl. Of course, this mock draft has the Lions trading, or no, actually that's via the Los Angeles Rams from dating back all the way to the Stafford days, I believe. Let's see here. The Raiders at number 7 take Will Levis. Oh, gosh, Josh Ward will hate that. Number 8, Peter Skoronowski, offensive tackle for Northwestern. He goes to the Falcons. Number 9, here's that 4th quarterback, Anthony Richardson, quarterback of Florida, going number 9 overall to the Panthers in this mock draft. And then the number 10 pick is Brian Breesy, defensive tackle of Clemson. He is going to the Philadelphia Eagles at number 10. So 4 quarterbacks, no Hendon Hooker, and all four of these are taken in the first round. This is according to Todd McShay. There are 4 wide receivers. None of them are named Jalin Hyatt that were taken in this first round. Quentin Johnson of TCU is going number 12 overall to the Houston Texans in this exercise. There's a run of wide receivers in the mid-20s. 23 overall, Jordan Addison is being mocked to the Minnesota Vikings. Jackson Smith, the wide receiver from Ohio State, being mocked 24th to the Jaguars. And then Zay Flowers being mocked 25th to the Giants. He is the wide receiver from Boston College. I've seen Jalin Hyatt been mocked to the Giants. I've seen Jalin Hyatt be mocked to the Jaguars. So this is some possibilities here. But interesting that is no Jalin Hyatt. Offensive tackles. Again, 5 in this exercise. None of them Darnell Wright. Peter Skoronowski of Northwestern, 8th overall to the Atlanta Falcons. He's going to be a top 10 pick. I've seen that pretty much everywhere. Paris Johnson is, I think, going to be the next offensive tackle taken. Paris Johnson from Ohio State. He is being mocked to the Tennessee Titans. I've seen him everywhere. He might be the number 2 guy drafted. Broderick Jones is a guy that has showed up everywhere. He's going 13th overall to the Jets. In this exercise, he's probably going to be up there. But, I mean, Darnell Wright's probably going to be after that, in my opinion. Probably mid-20s or whatever. In this exercise, 30th overall to the, 30th overall to the Eagles is Antoine Harrison of Oklahoma. And then 31, Jalen Duncan, offensive tackle of Maryland, is going to the Chiefs. You can't tell me that Darnell Wright's not going to be picked in front of them, or going to be picked after them. I just don't believe that. You go down and you look at, if you're on ESPN.com and go to the draft section, then it has the best available. I would imagine this is accumulated effort from McShay and from Kuiper and from Reed and all their draft guys, Matt Miller, because they have this best available. I went and looked up all of Tennessee's draft hopefuls and kind of saw where they were in the pecking order. This is kind of like power rankings per positions. Hendon Hooker's the 5th quarterback. That makes sense. Of course, I've already mentioned Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Will Levis, and Anthony Richardson being valued over Hendon Hooker. Cedric Tillman is actually the 6th wide receiver. I found that interesting because Jalin Hyatt comes in right behind him as the 7th best wide receiver. I think Jalin Hyatt will 100% be drafted in front of Cedric Tillman. I think Jalin Hyatt's going to go and run a 4.340, a low 4.340, and he is going to shoot up everybody's draft board at the NFL Combine. Darnell Wright is considered the 11th best offensive tackle per ESPN. I wholeheartedly will sell my house if that happens. Okay, that is not going to happen. Darnell Wright will be drafted way before that. Byron Young is the 8th best defensive end, according to ESPN. Jeremy Banks is the 19th best inside linebacker. Jerome Carvin is the 11th best offensive guard. And then Princeton Fant and Trayvon Flowers at tight end and safety did not come up in these rankings. So it'll be interesting. We'll see tons of more mock drafts, guys. Don't you worry about that. But the latest one, this post-Super Bowl first-round mock draft from Todd McShay, not one, not two, not three, not four volunteers in the first round, but none of those. Zero Tennessee volunteers in the first round. I think Darnell Wright will be a first-round draft pick. We will have to see. Hey, when we come back, we'll break down that Tennessee-Alabama game, a little hoops action that is coming up next right here on Locked on Vols. But first, guys, I want to remind you about our proud sponsors over at FanDuel. Because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000, because right now we're the midway season of the NBA, and there's no better time right now to download the FanDuel app, because it's America's #1 sports book. Again, that's $1,000, no sweat first bet. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. All you need to do is download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, it's secure, and it's super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and threes drained. Tons of prop bets is there as well. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with same game parlay, only at FanDuel. So don't miss a chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, guys, we welcome you back into your Thursday edition of Locked on Vols. I'm your host, Eric Kane, and a lot to celebrate as we talk about this Tennessee basketball team. Man, what a win for Tennessee, right? I mean, 68-59 over Alabama. Down goes Alabama, not just in football, but in basketball season as well. Alabama, the #1 ranked team in the country. What a response by Tennessee. And knowing where Tennessee was at the time of this game, right? I mean, Tennessee lost 3 of 4, coming off back-to-back losses at the buzzer to Vanderbilt and Missouri. Got embarrassed against Florida a couple weeks ago. It feels like forever since Tennessee was able to, kind of be on that mountaintop of beating Texas at Thompson-Boling Arena a couple weeks ago. But Tennessee comes back home, did not have Josiah Jordan-James, did not have Julian Phillips. Those guys did not play. But the guys who were in the lineup and the guys who came off the bench to aid in that effort, just phenomenal last night. 68-59, Tennessee takes down the #1 team in the land. And I know it's frustrating, again, because Tennessee is capable of winning any game it steps on the floor. It's capable of winning any single game this season. It's capable of beating any team in the country, but also it could lose to Vanderbilt like it did last week. But when you get these types of efforts, this is now Tennessee's now 5-4, or Tennessee's now 5-2 in quad 1 games. This is a game where the NCAA and the committee on Selection Sunday will look back and say, okay, that win in February at Thompson-Boling Arena was big for Tennessee, so maybe we need to move them off this 3-line to a 2-line, or maybe this 4-line to a 3-line, or whatever the case may be. That's the type of win that's going to help Tennessee moving forward throughout the end of March and on into the NCAA tournament. Tennessee, after back-to-back games, a pretty good offensive showings against Vanderbilt and Missouri. That wasn't the case here tonight. Vanderbilt or Alabama is a good basketball team. It was, I want to say, 6th overall in defensive efficiency rating, and top 15 in offensive efficiency rating. I mean, that's why it was the #1 ranked team in the land, right? It was a good basketball team. I held Tennessee to 37% from the field, 6 of 23 from three-point land. Even Tennessee didn't shoot well at the charity stripe, 16-25, right? But it did get tremendous play from Jonas Adu. He was phenomenal last night. A double-double, 12 points, 10 rebounds. He had a couple of steals in 27 minutes of play. And in the absence of Josiah Jordan-James, in the absence of Julian Phillips, Tennessee needed somebody to step up and just kind of take over like that. And Jonas Adu did. I thought Santiago Vescovi at the end of the ball game, knocking down those 4 free throws. That was huge. Obviously, for Tennessee to continue to widen its cushion a little bit over Alabama, but for Santi, just individual, right? He was I feel like he was in his head so much because of the miss late at Vanderbilt, because he did not put the game away at the charity stripe against Missouri. He had to have been racking his brain last couple of days just trying to figure it out, and for him to go and make 4 straight at the end of the ball game there against the number 1 ranked team in the country, that was huge for Santiago Vescovi. Vescovi ends up tying for the team high with 15 points along with Zakai Ziegler. Santi was 4-10 from the field, 3-6 from downtown, 4-5 at the stripe, 8 rebounds, had an assist as well. Santiago Vescovi played so well. Zakai Ziegler did as well. Didn't shoot the ball fantastic, 4 of 11, but did finish with 15 points. Knocked down 4 points at the charity stripe, made 3 triples, had 8 assists as well. This is the type of play Tennessee needs from Zakai Ziegler for Tennessee to be where it wants to be, and they got that from Double Z last night. 12 points from Jonas Adu, as I mentioned, 10 points from Uros Plavsic. I mean, of course, Uros, every now and again, he'll jump up and he'll get in double figures for you. He was perfect from the field, 4-4. He made 2 of his 3 free throws, had 4 rebounds. That's pretty good for him. Tennessee was able to get consistent play from these guys from the front court tonight to help out that back court. Olivier Cumwall had 9 points. He was a point away from double figures and 4 rebounds, even though he didn't shoot the ball incredibly well. Tyreek Key, not as good, obviously, as he was the other night with 23 points. He only finishes with 5, 1-9 shooting, but he played 27 minutes, and he was able to be out there for Tennessee in a game where they had to have some experienced ball handlers and smart basketball players on the court. Brandon Miller's phenomenal, right? He fouled out late in the second half, 15 points, 4 of 11 shooting. Excuse me. He was not great. He was not the best, but Tennessee did an overall decent job with him and holding him to only 15 points. The season average was 18. Quinterly was horrendous last night. Finished with 3 points in only 17 minutes, 3 points, 3 rebounds. Not the type of game that he wanted from a veteran for Alabama. Of course, their center did not play, but Tennessee, actually their center did play, but nonetheless, Tennessee did what it had to do to pull off this upset. And it was kind of funny because you knew they were going to do it, right? I mean, I remember I was talking to some guys earlier in the day, or even it was on Monday and Tuesday, and I'm like, Tennessee is going to win this game, right? Because that's so Tennessee. You're in this shooting slump, you're in this lull, and then you come back and play the number 1 team in the country, and you find a way to pull it off, right? Well, that is Tennessee. Tennessee now extends its home winning streak against AP top 10 opponents to 6 straight wins. Tennessee snaps an Alabama 3-game winning streak with the victory. How about that? And again, this is a game that's going to help Tennessee so much moving forward in this game, big picture-wise. We'll see how Tennessee responds. Can you find some valleyways? You have so many highs, so many lows. Can you find a valley? Because you're on a mountaintop right now. You do not need to go down into the ditch here. You got to find some middle ground here when you go to Kentucky and take advantage of a Kentucky basketball team that is reeling as well. Kentucky was reeling really bad before it came to Thompson-Boling Arena back in January, and Tennessee just couldn't find a way to win that game. Can you win on the road in Rupp? I said it before last game, and I'll say it again. It's still Tennessee and Kentucky. It still means an awful lot, and it's still John Calipari that is coaching that basketball team. So, what a win for Tennessee. 68-59. Tennessee, the darlings of the basketball world on a Wednesday night. And, job well done. Again, doing this without 2 starters. 2 starters that play 20-plus minutes a game. And everything that Josiah Jordan-James means to this team in terms of lineup flexibility and all that more, Tennessee was able to find a way to get it done. So, congrats to Tennessee. Really, congrats to the University of Tennessee. Its 20th win on the season, and this is a win that you'll look back on and say, well, that might have been the most important win of the year, because we know that wins in the SEC tournament don't mean crap. They just don't. Look at last year. They don't mean anything. Wins right now mean something. So, congrats to Tennessee for getting it done. All right, Tennessee basketball took down number 1 last night. Tennessee baseball is going to be taking on Arizona, the number 2 ranked Volunteers on the Diamond, taking on Arizona tomorrow, and the MLB Desert Invitational gets going. We're going to talk with Ryan Shumpert, Rocky Top Insider. That's coming up next right here on Locked On Vols. All right, guys, Tennessee baseball starts tomorrow. It's going to be the MLB Desert Invitational. Tennessee is one of 7 teams in the field of play. Preseason ranked number 2 by 5 different publications. I believe I counted it up earlier this week. 22 preseason All-Americans in total. So that's pretty incredible. Of course, none of it matters until you get out there and play some games on the field, and Tennessee's going to do that starting the 2023 campaign. Of course, spent about 10 weeks ranked as the nation's #1 team last year. Fell short of Omaha, losing in the Super Regional finale to Notre Dame. But Tennessee baseball team's exciting, and I know we're all thankful for it whenever there's no football and basketball on to watch. And so you guys will begin to watch these guys and kind of learn their names and everything. But kind of to kick off this season, again, season opening pitch, that's tomorrow, the MLB Invitational, Desert Invitational. We got Ryan Shumpertz, friend of the program, on from RTI. What's up, Ryan?
Not much. Excited for baseball season, and I think kind of in the same boat as you. A lot of stuff to get ready to roll, and it should be a fun year and certainly a busy first month.
All right, so I do this thing called the question of the day every day on the podcast. Today's question is, who will be this year's Drew Gilbert on the Tennessee baseball team? And you can answer that however you want. The new center fielder, the new cleanup hitter, the new emotional leader. But I think everybody can agree, like Drew Gilbert wore all those hats for Tennessee, was a huge part. And, of course, he, along with Beck and Ortega and Lipscomb and all those guys, they're no longer here anymore.
You're right. There's a lot of different directions you can go with that. But I think when you first asked it, the first thing that went into my head is who's that emotional leader and who is the guy that is going to provide an edge on this team. And I think that's Christian Moore. And I think you saw some of that last year in his freshman season, despite the fact that he wasn't an everyday starter. Obviously, Jarrell Ortega was ahead of him at second base, and he got some DH starts, especially against left-handed pitchers. But he's been good all offseason, and he's going to be the starting second baseman this year. I think he has that attitude. Probably not quite to the edge that Drew Gilbert had. Not many people do, but I think he has a bit of that. And certainly I think in an expanded role, you'll see more and more of that. And I certainly think he has a bat that's going to be somewhere, whether it's probably more likely at the top of Tennessee's order, maybe in the middle of Tennessee's order. It's going to see him have a lot of production as well.
Yeah, Christian Moore is one of those guys that's replacing 8 starters for Tennessee in defense. It's pretty incredible to think about it. And you're right. I mean, Moore, he was almost a regular in that lineup. Blake Burke was a regular towards the end at DH. Jared Dickey played a ton of left field before his injury. So, like, we've seen a lot of these guys. But, I mean, look around. Halverson, Gilberts, Beck, Lipscomb, Lawson, Ortega, Lipsius, I mean, Russell, they're all gone. And so you're having to replace all that type of stuff. A position that I know you're intrigued in because you've asked a lot of questions about this, in preseason, the catcher position. Looks like it's going to be Charlie Taylor, little 1-2 punch with Cal Stark. Ryan Miller's available as well. And if worse comes to worse, you need somebody else, Jared Dickey can catch back there too.
Certainly, and I think what's so intriguing about it is there are so many bodies, like you said, and this is all with the fact that Jack Alexander to Austin Peay transferred, or who had committed to Tennessee, ends up signing an undrafted free agent deal, and that's a guy Tennessee banked on having on campus. But despite that, they have a lot of capable bodies, and I think it shows a lot of confidence that they have in Cal Stark, and certainly to a degree Charlie Taylor as well, that Jared Dickey has moved back to the outfield, not full-time, but he's spending more time there than he is behind the plate, and that's not the sole reason. Obviously, that hand injury he had kind of set him back sidelined him the last 2-3 weeks of fall practice. But there seems to be a lot of confidence in those guys. And certainly Charlie Taylor didn't have big numbers at the plate last year, but to me, he looked better with his bat in the fall. And we know he's a pretty solid defensive catcher. To me, Cal Stark, even despite getting to watch him a lot in the fall, he's probably maybe the one player on this team I'm most intrigued to watch because his bat is really solid. And he's a guy, even if maybe Jack Alexander was here or Tennessee would have landed Paul Skeens from Air Force, but I think you might have seen press for designated hitter at bats or starts. So he's really solid with the bat, but just how capable is he with the glove and all the nuances that come with being a really good defensive catcher. He's capable there, but I'm going to be curious to see just how strong he is and how much better he can get over the course of the season.
Yeah, I try not to say this like in a rude fashion because I don't mean it that way, but regardless, you're going to be getting a defensive upgrade behind the play. I mean, that was Tennessee's weakness last year. And Evan Russell, that is not his position. He selfishly volunteered to do it because that's the type of guy he is. And, of course, he was always a big bat in that lineup. Look at the outfield. That is the one, and Tony kind of spoke on this earlier this week. It's especially the first couple games of the season because there will be some guys who are not there, but it's almost like the 3 outfield spots and the DH are kind of all depending on matchup, depending on who's there. But I think we know Griffin Merritt is going to be a regular. We know Jared Dickey will be a regular. It's Kyle Booker, Christian Scott, Dylan Dreiling, Reese Chapman. It's those four. They're going to have to be kind of like fighting for innings amongst center, right, and left.
You're right. And to me, Kyle Booker is the biggest X factor in that room because he's the most natural center fielder. I mean, Christian Scott can do it. We know Jared Dickey has done it. Certainly, probably Chapman more than Dreiling, but both the freshmen can do it a little bit. He's the guy you feel really, really confident about back there. And certainly the potential of his bat is quite a bit better than Scott, who I think would probably be the next best defensive option in center field. So he's the guy. I predicted him to have a breakout year last year. It didn't come. Vitello has been very complimentary of him, especially into fall. So it's another guy that could potentially be in that role this year. But to me, it makes the question marks a lot easier to figure out. And the puzzle pieces a lot easier to put in if Kyle Booker can become the player Tennessee hopes and thinks he can be. And then Reese Chapman, to me, has been of the three freshman outfielders. Obviously, Stanwich is not back for the spring semester, but he was, to me, the most impressive one in the fall. I've heard nothing but really good things about what he's done in the spring. And I would be really surprised if he doesn't earn a lot of starts and earn a lot of playing time. And certainly, I think Christian Scott is the safety blanket in that room. You know he's good defensively. You know he's got good speed, and you know he's a capable bat. He doesn't have the ceiling of those other guys, but with the experience and all that stuff, I imagine you'll see him get some starts earlier in the season.
You know, it's kind of interesting. All those guys can play all those spots, and we feel like Jared Dickey is going to get a lot in center. We know Griffin Merritt will not play center. He'll play corner. But all those other guys, I mean, they can play all three. And so it just kind of depends on matchup, who's available, all that type of stuff. So, again, that's kind of an embarrassment of riches, or maybe not that phrase. Maybe it's a good problem to have in terms of filling out that lineup card each and every weekend, especially if they're all hitting and trying to earn the right to get at bats. Last thing here, man, it's saving the best for last, but it's pitching staff. I put out my preview over VolQuest.com yesterday, and of course we know about the All-Americans in the starting rotation. And but what I love about this staff is you have three swingmen who can come in and help you out of a bind no matter what. Or two, more importantly, Camden Sewell, Seth Halverson, those guys can come in. Andrew Lindsay can be one of those guys as well. Lindsay can probably close some games. You got Jacob Bemby, who's a newcomer that's going to get a whole lot of run. Zach Joyce is a guy that's here. Kobe Connell. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I feel like this staff, and when I spoke with Tony last week, he even said it, entering the season, this is as deep as they have ever been. And, Ryan, pitching will take you as far as you will go as far as the arms will take you, and Tennessee has some good arms.
Certainly, and Tony Vitello has been pumping the brakes, I think, on expectations a little bit, and I understand that because of all those new faces in the field. But one, when you have the starting rotation that Tennessee has, and then you back that up with the depth they have in the bullpen, you're going to have all these expectations, and you're going to be number 2 in the country. And certainly, there aren't a whole lot of questions about the weekend starting pitching staff, but the bullpen, I mean, there's tons. I wrote about it today, and I threw Camden Sewell, Seth Halverson, and Kirby Connell as 3 guys we're going to get a lot of innings. And then I said I had a list of 8 guys that I felt like were capable past those 3 guys of helping out and are going to be competing for innings in the weekend. And that's just like you said, it's kind of an embarrassment of depth, an embarrassment of riches. And there's a lot of right-handers. There's a lot of left-handers. Obviously, that starting staff is all right-handed arms, but there's a lot of left-handed arms I like a lot. You named Bemby. He was really impressive in the fall. Vitello talked highly of him yesterday. Jake Fitzgibbons, we know, has the talent. He's kind of been an off-season hype guy throughout his career. Can he put it all together? And then Wyatt Evans is another guy I liked a lot in the fall. Seemed like he was capable of making a big jump from his freshman to sophomore year. And you mentioned it, with Halverson, Joyce, and Lindsay. Those are 3 power arms that are really, really talented. And the question is just about the consistency and the fact that they haven't played a whole lot.
Yeah.
Obviously, Lindsay and Halverson haven't been on the mound in a year. It's 2 years for Joyce. But all those guys throw upper 90s. All those guys are extremely, extremely talented. And kind of like Jared Dickey said yesterday, and it'll be a little bit different earlier in the season as they build pitch count up, but there's just not going to be a ton of opportunities because of how good that starting rotation is. So who can be consistent, who can make the most of those opportunities they have in the first month of the season is going to be really, really fascinating because a lot of talent there and a lot of depth. And it's going to certainly be interesting to see how Frank Anderson, Vitello, Richard Jackson, and all those coaches handle those arms because I know I wouldn't want to be doing it. It's complicated just writing about it, let alone trying to manage all of it.
No, I've been writing all those previews, man. It's been like the pitching one the other day was like 1,500 words, and I'm like, Brent, I'm sorry, man. Like I should have broke it up, but like Like there's just so many guys. It's a kind of preview and everything. So, and don't worry, there'll be plenty of double midweek action the first couple weeks of the season, which I know you and I are going to love being over there so much. But I was asked this in the Monday Night Chat the other night, and I haven't looked up the over/under total odds or anything like that for Tennessee baseball if they're even available. I know that they have the second best odds to reach the College World Series according to FanDuel. I believe they have the best odds according to DraftKings. But someone presented the number 49.5 wins. Would you go over or under? Someone asked, like, is this going to be better than the 57-win team? I'm like, probably not. I mean, 57 wins is so much, and I know they're replacing so much, but I still feel like this team's going to win, upper 40-ish games this year because of the arms and all they have in the options in the field.
Yeah, I would agree. I would take the over there, and I would be surprised if they reached that 57 number, but I certainly think this team is very, very capable of getting to Omaha and winning games. So that's where you make it up. And you look at, it wasn't like Tennessee was just perfect in the non-conference slate. I mean, they were really good, but they lost that game to Texas early in the season. And they obviously lost to Tennessee Tech in that game at Smoky Stadium. So if you ask me, can they match 57? I'd probably say no. Can they match the 25 SEC wins? I would probably say no. But 8 wins, that's a big gap. And I think Tennessee will find itself somewhere in the middle of 50 and 57.
All right, I lied. I'm going to ask you one more. What do you think about this weekend? Been doing the research, writing the preview, getting ready before I leave. Arizona is going to be challenging. Grand Canyon is a good ball club. Their offense is good. Of course, they have one of the top prospects in the country, along with Tennessee, of course. And then I think Tennessee, if they want to, could beat UC San Diego by 25 runs, by probably 8 or 9 runs if they want to, because their pitching is not very good, and that's going to be their 4th game of the weekend. So who knows what they have left in the cupboard there. But I think Tennessee, Arizona, Grand Canyon are going to be really good out-of-conference matchups for this team out of the gate. A chance to figure some things out against teams who will likely be into the NCAA regional.
You hit the nail on the head. I completely agree with all that. And it's almost like Tony Vitello did the scheduling of who they played when, because I think that's exactly those 3 opponents. I think you get them each day exactly how you would want. Arizona to start with Chase Dollander, and then Burns on Saturday against Grand Canyon. And then you'll have Drew Beam, who I think is really the only of those weekend starters that there's really any questions about, just to see how he can bounce back from a rough last month of the season last year. So they're certainly capable of losing either of those first 2 games. It's not like those are just slam dunk easy wins. But you won't find me betting against Chase Dollander and Chase Burns. So I'll take the Vols to win 3 out in Arizona.
Ryan, appreciate it, man. We'll be following your work over at Rocky Top Insider. Thanks so much.
Yeah, of course. Appreciate you having me on.
Ryan Shumpert, RTI. Used to bring him on the show to talk baseball a couple years ago. Used to work a little bit with me over at VolQuest.com. And little boy continues to grow up. Doing great work. He does a good job covering the basketball team, the baseball team, and he's a good guy. So give him a follow, rshump00 on Twitter. All right, guys, we had a fun time breaking down the Tennessee basketball game from last night, talking a little baseball, doing some other stuff here on a Thursday show. Coming up on tomorrow's show, we will hear a little bit from Jalin Hyatt, Radio Row from Super Bowl last week. Looking forward to that. We'll preview a little bit more of Tennessee baseball, and we'll catch up with Jared Dickey. I had a conversation with him last week, kind of previewing the season. That's what you have to look forward to tomorrow on Locked On Vols, as Tennessee baseball opening night has come. All right, guys, appreciate it. Same time, same place. We'll do it again tomorrow. This is Locked On Vols.